today is Tuesday, December 13th, 2022. We're convened as the Provo City School District Board of Education. We're meeting at 280 West, 940 North in Provo, Utah. We'll begin with a roll call. Melanie Hall, Board President.
Rebecca Nelson, Board Vice President.
Jennifer Partridge, Board Member.
Gina Hale, Board Member.
Meg Van Wagenen, Board Member-elect.
McKay Jensen, Board Member.
Terry McCabe, Board Member.
Lisa Boyce, Board Member-elect.
Nate Bryson, Board Member.
Derek Anderson, Business Administrator.
Keith Rachel, Superintendent.
Is there a motion to convene the study session?
I move that we convene the study.
All right, we are now in study session. I'm going to turn the time over to Derek Anderson for a construction update.
All right, let me mirror this really quickly again. Let's see here. Alright, so this is the construction update for December 8th. Tent view is the first one, and I've got a video here, so what I'll do is I'll play that, but this gives you a highlight of what's happening there. You can see the roof is starting to be put on at the third floor. You can see that there those metal or steel trusses that they've been tying it across that will put that other paneling on to keep that roof extending. The other area to the upper right left-hand corner is that the new media center, the commons area, things like that. And what those tarps are is it's because when you do masonry or concrete or things like that, if the weather is too cold, it will not cure properly. So they have to tarp it like that, put in heaters, just to make sure that things cure correctly. Okay. What you see up back there is that's all staging area where we have our pipe. The new wing that we just opened, you're going to see right here as they turn to the right. That is the new wing that we just opened up. So those are able to have classes in there now. What you can see there, that is, I'm going to pause this right here. That is the footprint of the bleachers, where the new bleachers are going to go, right there. This back here on the back area is going to be where the softball field is going to end up being placed when it's all finished also. So they're moving forward on that, trying to, at least from the stadium standpoint and these bleachers, to make up for some lost time in scheduling. So that's kind of where Tent View is at still. When it's at walls, what you see here, walls and beams and things like that, it seems to move really slowly. And then once it's all closed up, all of a sudden that finish work starts happening really fast. And so it kind of seems like it isn't moving as fast as maybe the other wing, but it definitely is being done at the timeline. And right now the timeline is still they're planning to be open for the first of school. They went and did a planning meeting to look at the calendar. There was some concern that we had some times that were in September, but they readjusted, and I'm told that they were able to push things back and are now still on schedule for the first of the school year.
2023.
2023, correct. So August 2023, they're still saying that it will be open. Now, even though that's what they're saying, I don't believe it.
Well, we were supposed to be in the other place.
I don't believe it because, we're being told, 30 weeks just on elevators after measurement, right? So that means everything has been constructed. The chute has been built, the elevator is going to go up and down, but once they can go in and actually measure things, it's 30 weeks from then even to get the elevator in. So it's going to be very tight. There's, I would say, a greater than the likelihood that it's probably going to be a fall break at the earliest.
To move in?
to move in, correct.
How, there was the second level concrete issue. Is that all taken care of now?
So I haven't walked through it yet to see if they've finished it. It is all on them, you know, on their cost to tear it all out. The last time I went down there, they were still in the process. But I haven't walked that one section probably in a month, so I don't know yet. I don't know for certain if it's been finished or not.
And the
It was getting-
timeline for completion is one thing, it's demolition. We're not
Yeah,
getting
no,
to, we're not
correct.
getting to demolition for the first of school anyway.
Correct.
So,
And-
and
That most likely be spring.
And that's really, all that would do is move kids out of the current academic wings and into the new academic wing. The whole school will still be pretty much a construction zone, because then they'd be demoing and things like that for the next year. And also building the parking lot and things like that.
softball
So,
field.
yes, so that's only the academic wing opening that I'm talking about.
okay.
Derek, we got a tour of Provo High, I don't know, was it like 6 months before it opened or something like that? When would be a good time for us to go, be able to see the site, the construction site? Do you know?
If we're interested in scheduling a site visit, I'm anytime we'd like to, if anybody would like to do that, we could schedule it again. Right now it's gonna be cold. And
Yeah,
it's-
I'm
It was
not
more,
in a hurry.
It was more
I-
done, like they were putting the gym floors.
Yeah,
Right,
it
it
was
was,
like
that's what, it was like
Like
6-ish
drywall's
months.
up and things like
Like
that.
I would like to
yeah.
go when it's a little, probably further down the road.
Kind of like where
Maybe
we
this
were at
summer.
with the other wing that we just opened up.
Yeah.
Perfect, yeah.
Something like that.
I
Can we
can-
keep that in mind and
Yep.
do something in the future?
Absolutely.
Okay, that'd be awesome. When it's warm. That's great.
Okay, so Shoreline is, again, you know, it's coming along great. We're not really having any issues. The wetlands issue that was down here has been cleared. We've been given the permit. It's been issued. So this actually, right now, has been updated. This is the latest updated video, or at least the updated status. That fence line that you see right there is actually moved farther south to encompass that wetland area. They've started moving grading.
So it's just square, right?
Yep.
I mean,
Correct.
basically, you can see
Yeah, where-
what the conflict was just a corner.
So then, what you see here is these are just the footings and the flat work for the new shoreline. So over here on this side, you've got your gyms, your lunchroom, your auditorium, and then you start to move farther along this direction into the actual academic section of the facility. All the piping over here on the north side of what you're seeing is going to be for the road that we're widening. It's going to be a thoroughfare right here along that northern edge of the property, and also the I believe down the main road of our property to help with the storm drain system for the city. But as you can see here, you know, it's moving along, and I imagine this project will probably be the smoothest project in terms of unforeseen issues of the 3 projects, just due to it's a brand new site and it's flat.
You just cursed yourself.
I know, and
I know.
but things are moving along great right now on this property. So this is the Wasatch property, and it's actually coming along pretty good at this point. You can see that there's, I mean, just a ton of grading that is happening right now on that property to get it to the proper grade that is needed for building. This wall right here is a retaining wall, where you're going to have a section of the building, I believe, is going to come out down into here. These right here are being compacted. This compaction all here is at 95%, right? Almost, you know, 100% compaction. It's 95% plus in compaction before we can get signed off on being able to build anything on it, right? And so, but really what we're seeing is a lot of dirt work. You can see the retaining wall is being cut back to be prepping for these retaining walls. I mean, between the 3 retaining walls that are going to be here, when they're stacked on top of each other, it's going to be roughly a 50-foot drop from the our street, the edge of the street down to where it'll be grade level with the playground.
So, and let me make sure I understood clearly. It's at 95%, but it has to be at 100 before we can build it.
No, sorry. Before we can build on it, it's got to meet the compaction standards, which are 95% or higher.
Okay, got it. And do you know what it's at?
All the testing's been coming back. It's tested like every few feet they have to retest it, and all along that entire thing, and all of them are coming back clear. Like, we haven't had a single one fail. So they're all meeting that required threshold. So we're also, the other thing there been a lot of discussion about, there's not much worry about settling on this property. There's just a lot of rock, a lot of, it's compacted. There's massive boulders that we're pulling out of here. It's not soil that moves easily. So so that's the one thing.
So no helical piers.
There's no helical piers that will be going in on this site.
Another quick question for you. On Shoreline, that's on schedule to open in the 25-26 year? Or 24-25?
That's the one, yes.
Okay, same with Wasatch?
Yes.
Okay.
So let's see, and then the other thing that to update is that we have a construction website up on our website, right, where we put videos, where we got information about what the budget is on these projects. We've got photos. There's a lot of information that if people are interested, they can go here and get updates. We're hoping to update it monthly. There's been some turnover in the district, so we got it up, and it hasn't been updated since, so it's been, I think, about a month behind at this point. But
I updated it today.
did you update it today?
Oh,
Thank
yes,
you. So that is now up there also for people in the public to look at.
I just got the ribbon cutting up.
Okay. Any other questions on any of this? Okay.
Right. And turn the time over to you again for the large purchase request.
Okay. So what you've got before you is there's two large purchase requests. One of them is for Domo, and the other one is for the construction manager. The one for Domo is the data analytics software that we've been talking about. The construction manager is, with as much as these projects are taking in terms of my time, and not really having the availability and needing to get on to other things that we've got going on, and the complexity of what's happening up at Tempe being a rebuild, there's been some internal discussion, and there's a desire to hire this outside third party as a construction manager to help support our internal team, so that way I can back off the projects and free up for self-funding, free up for the budget, free up for Domo, right? So for these other things. And so that this would be just for the Temp View project is what I'm asking for. He gave a quote for all three projects, but my belief is the Temp View is the one that's really causing the most headache right now. And by having some extra support there, it will help our team also understand and see, how they're handling sticky situations where there's questions about, or disputes on plans or install or things like that.
So this is basically, we had Mark, he was a construction professional, he's gone. We've been having education professionals managing this, and now you would like to have a construction professional. But we don't need someone full-time because it's going to be a short period of time until we're done with these projects.
Partly, largely yes, correct. The one piece is our people internally are qualified, but we have 3 projects going on and only 1 construction individual, and that's a lot for that one individual, plus to be also helping out the department with the regular maintenance of things.
But this is a contract worker, so
And
there's
so
no
thi-
benefits.
This is
or-
correct. So this is a full just an outside third-party contractor. Once this project is done, that part goes away.
And their whole part is just to keep costs down.
Correct.
And to not
Second
second
guess.
guess, but like
Yeah.
to challenge
To
the
represent
Double check.
builders.
Derek at the table.
100% correct.
Okay, this
And
is-
they guarantee their cost, they will save that amount.
Okay, and it makes sense. Anytime you have, like, if you're a big firm and you have a lawsuit, you always have internal lawyers, you have external, because then the internals make sure the externals aren't screwing up, because they have different interests, so I think it's a good idea.
So can you just clarify, because on here it lists for all the projects, but maybe just for Timpview, so what would you like to see?
So I think only Timpview is needed. I think the other two projects are running smooth enough now, and they're fresh builds. We're not gonna have near the issues that we're having at Timpview. Right now we've got old sets of plans, we've got new sets of plans, we're having to look at our old plans from the original build and now compare to see if things match up, and there's a lot of questions.
You're coordinating calendars with academic calendar. The problem is the students on site and the faculty on site, and what takes your time is those things have to be resolved right now, because there are students and employees in the middle of a construction zone, and so that's what takes you away.
And that's honestly, I've been so soaked up in construction the last 6 months that I haven't been able to focus on because it's everyday calls I'm needing to address, go and handle an agreement or a dispute, so it's 100% correct, is that between either the emergencies of everything having to be handled right now, having to drop what I'm doing to go address that, or also versus having somebody externally come in and be able to help vet those. I think personally it would be a huge help to the district.
So it's just the 6437 a month you're asking for, not the 1188.
Correct.
And is this on a month-to-month basis, or is this like a 2-year term? Or?
It would just be for this year, 1 year, our calendar year.
2020.
2023, correct.
So their contract ends in May of '23.
No, because the construction
calendar
project.
The
December.
calendar, you're not the school year.
Okay.
And on this proposal, there's 3 people on there.
So that's the team, that's just their team.
So that's not the actual person who.
Chad Jones is the individual who,
Okay.
and he has another individual, I believe is the next individual. I cannot remember his name off the top of my head, I apologize. But those 2 individuals were the 2 that came to the meeting that we had the other day.
So,
Brandon,
Great.
thank you.
Oh, and then the 3rd person on there is not going to be involved, or is
I-
that just the construction team or the management team of the company?
You're hiring a service,
And
how they
so-
manage their
Yeah,
service.
typically, even with an audit firm, when you go out for an audit firm, they list their entire team and everybody and whatnot. So it's laying out, hey, here's all of our experience that our firm has.
so Derek, I thought the school district hired a construction manager a year ago. And what you're saying is that one person was hired, but 3 people weren't hired because we had 3 projects.
Mark held the position of Director of Facilities, and he was also paid a stipend to be construction manager. So it was the construction, we've got the facilities side of things covered, but the construction manager thing is still just kind of fallen to Derek at this point, so.
Well, and
Does that answer your question, Terry?
No, because I remember a year ago, there was a job open up for a construction manager, and what I understood was that there were going to be 3 people hired because we had 3 projects.
No, we didn't. We actually didn't open up anything. We instead of rehiring Mark, we reshuffled job responsibilities and duties around to try to save on hiring another very expensive admin FTE. And so that's what we ended up doing. There was no FTEs that were added or replaced from Mark. It was,
No, this was
the
before
department.
Mark quit.
I don't know anything about that because there's no construction person on our team other than myself and Steve Canfield.
Okay.
And
I don't remember
where does Kyle fit?
So Kyle is the director of maintenance and facilities, right? But he doesn't handle anything of the construction side of things. So he's oversees the maintenance of facilities and custodial services.
See, when he originally came on, I was thinking he was coming on to help manage the project.
Yeah,
But,
no,
yeah, but you're
It
saying,
changed over
if
time.
we get this one for Temp View, then with this team you have in facilities, you guys can handle shoreline and all that.
And part of this is also building capacity within, right? And so one of the things you recently saw in your email about was kind of restructuring some custodial positions. That also will help Shane Powell, because he's expressed a desire to learn and do some of this. And so he will also help at the Temp View project, learn from this outside firm also, and help there, while Steve then is on the other two projects.
So I contacted Navigate, is that what they're called? I contacted a couple of their references and they said that it was really good. They have an architect on their team, so they were able to communicate easier with the construction projects. Like Lehigh called me and said, yeah, it was much easier to communicate with them. So.
And yeah, from my meetings that I've had with them, I've been impressed, and I think they're going to definitely do what is needed to be able to make it to where I'm not so inundated with that daily decision making on our construction projects. So any other questions on that? Okay, and then the other one is just the two, Domo and
Did who knew it come in? I didn't know that Domo is
Hey, can you
getting
can
better,
you
but
explain
they're
everything
yes.
for the public as well?
Yep,
too, Domo?
so we went through an RFP on a data analytics software. Who knew it was bought out by Power School.
right.
So Power School, we interviewed Power School, and when we got into the questioning, and I asked some pointed questions to Power School about their software, and I said, it looks great. It actually looks really close to Panorama, what we're using, but that's only part of the puzzle what I'm trying to solve. And when I told them what we're trying to do and what I want to do with it, they said, we actually use Domo internally for that.
Domo's really good.
Domo's really good. And so they were, by far, in terms of ease of use and offering, they came out heads and shoulders above the other one. And the Power School one didn't even put in because of they knew that what we were looking for is different.
Okay.
They wanted the opportunity to look at possibly going head to head with Panorama and doing something differently there. And I just said, well, that's not what I'm getting into right now, or we're even looking at. So this is what we're looking at right now. So.
Okay.
So you did do a RFP then?
Yes.
Okay.
So is there going to be any software that will be eliminated after we get Domo up and running?
That would be a decision in the future, but not right out the gate, because we don't have anything like this right now.
Okay.
Are you so with the state transitioning to USIMS, are you putting any money away to I mean, they have a January 1st, a year from July that this is supposed to be, they're kind of in a mess.
So I actually had a meeting.
Can you,
Yeah,
what is that
nobody
you're
knows what
talking
you're
about?
talking about.
'Cause I'm
So
not-
USIMS is the new data.
State data system. So every problem that the school districts has, we report to the state, and the state has all these systems, and legislators and other people go, well, how come I can't see this all together? So the same thing that Derek is trying to accomplish with Domo, they, over the last 6 years, have appropriated about $70 million for the state to build something called USIMS that will put financial, teacher licensing, student achievement, all this stuff in one place to be able to be used. They haven't even really written a spec, and the people that they've hired to do it just kind of go, yeah, we're gonna throw this switch in.
So I actually had a meeting last week. I've been invited to the USIMS user group, so I'm part of that meeting that is happening now with USIMS. And so what the USIMS goal is to be able to take all of the data across the state and all the districts and have the state be able to come in and say, all right, we need your data now, release it to us, and they can instantly pull it. We don't have to send it to them. We don't have to. It's electronically just pulled. Now, the route they're going, and this is what the whole conversation is I kind of chuckled and I said, Scott, what you guys are trying to accomplish up there, we're already actually starting to work on this. And the route, and this is what I told Scott too, is I said the route that you're trying to go will never work. You will get crushed. Because the trying to roll something out, shotgun wide approach statewide, without fleshing all the issues, is going to turn into a hot mess. And so my advice to Scott was find districts that already have this belief in data connectivity and transparency, and work with them directly to make sure every last system they're using has API built into it. So that way, Olio has an API, PowerSchool has an API, Utrex has its API. You've got right.
But regardless, they will make demands on districts like us to say this is what your data should look like.
Correct.
So are we worried that we're going to build something cool and that's going to be contrary to?
No, I'm not worried about it, because this is internally for us to make decisions, be able to do things. USIMS is, we're not going to be able to go in and start manipulating and doing any of the data. All it is saying that your system, whatever it is that you use, school district, I'm pointing over here to a blank chair, you, school district over here, must connect to us over here. And so we will build this API, and now your system talks to our system, so that when we need the data, we have it now, and we're not waiting on even 2 or 3 weeks. So that's really what USIMS is they're trying to...
It's just a connectivity
essentially, exactly. It's a connectivity type platform where they're trying to connect all the systems so that they can get their information faster. Now, would it allow them to do things like what we're trying to do with Domo? Absolutely. But they would definitely have to have that mindset to be doing that and be building and be thinking in that direction. But
because we're going to have to build those APIs into the Domo as well. I mean, they're a little bit better with spreadsheets and all that.
oh, correct.
But for it to work right, we're going to have to build those, and so we can just, will pretty much be the same thing. We can just give them what we...
They're already being built.
Okay.
So that's our systems, or at least our financial system, has already been building it. So.
Okay.
And it looks like we're doing a 3-year contract with them.
Correct.
So our budget can afford this yearly subscription?
And that's why I'm asking to come here. I mean, right now the money that I've asked for is coming out of the ESSER, and so it would drop down to about, I think it was $60,000 a year after that, and then I would budget for it and make it work.
But I think this could be similar to like what we're doing with the construction manager. This is an opportunity for us to look at things and make the financial decisions that will pay for itself off in the long run.
Absolutely correct.
We'll let you manage closer to the numbers,
yeah.
Instead of going, well, okay, this is what we think, and let's put this cushion in, and then you won't have, the idea is you won't have big surpluses at the end of the year because you'll see what's going on. And
there's a lot of amazing features with it, where you can build out projections, you can do trend analysis.
If you're smart enough to ask the right questions, it'll save you a ton of money. But you have to be able to ask the right questions.
I believe in Derek. I think he's smart enough.
There's a lot of confidence there.
You're willing to bet $60,000.
As long as the table size is not involved.
He's smart enough.
Well, you hired him too, so I believe in him as much as I
Yeah,
do.
but I'm leaving, so I don't care.
All right, any further questions on these two purchases. So this will be voted on tonight in the business meeting. All right, next, I'm going to turn the time over to Jason Cox to have the calendar discussion.
Yay, calendar, right?
Everybody's favorite.
Good evening, school board, thank you for the opportunity. So in your packet tonight, you saw that there are a couple of different documents. We shared with you the process that we went through to gather the information about priorities for the calendar. So we started by pushing that survey out in October, asking the community which, kind of how they would like to look at the survey itself as far as priorities. So there are 9 things, and then once we got the survey back, at the bottom you'll see the results of how those items ranked based on the survey.
Would you talk about the 2 that you added this year in response to some of the questions that have come up in previous years?
Yeah, Caleb and I have received some questions over some time about starting the school year after Labor Day. And that's, you know, there are school districts that still do that, not locally, but people who moved from out of state wanted to see that as an option. So we took two looks at that this year by adding those as options on the survey. A lot of people really like getting out before Memorial Day and like a 2-week Christmas break. There's a lot of things ahead of that then move those further down on the list as being things that would be preferences. So the 9 items that we received back as far as their preferences, we then went ahead and built 2 calendar options, an A and a B, and pushed those out for the 24-25 school year, again for voting. We left that open for a little over 3 weeks for the voting, and we received really good feedback. Calendar A was voted for quite extensively over the other one, 70% to 30%. And a lot of that is based on the fact that it has a full 2-week Christmas break. It does start really early. August 13th is the start date for schools. So those are some of the items that are in there. Any questions about that portion of the calendar discussion? So tonight we're going to come to you asking that you tentatively approve the 24-25 school calendar A to be posted as our calendar that we'll be looking at to use during that school year. Yes.
Other districts, we're pretty on board with them as of right now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, good question. We were really early in the adoption of a 2-week Christmas or winter break, and all school districts locally have moved in that direction because communities like that. So yeah, we actually started later this year than a couple of the other districts based on that. So this start date, even though it is really early, we're right in line with our neighbors.
It's more, are we in line with our fall breaks and spring?
Yeah, and those things, yes, we still meet for the calendar committee and review those, but again, sometimes the committee asks for different things. No one's necessarily compelled to have to do it, so that's why sometimes even after we put out an option, we go back and change it like we did before.
So my quick question is like this coming school year, or this current school year, we're ending term 2 before Christmas break. And this one does as well. I don't know if we're going to be discussing that, but I just noticed that like it's only 41 days for that term, which is a lot shorter than the other days. Is that something we're concerned about?
Yes, so I brought this to the school board, I believe it was 2 years ago for the first time, because that was quite a conversation among the local school districts about wanting to move to ending the second term before the winter break. It really can't happen some years just because of what you described. Like next year would have been 38 to 50 days. So next year's ends January 12th, I believe, is the end of the term date for term 2. On this year that we're looking at, the 24-25, it's a possibility because it's a little closer. It's still about 5 to 6 days off, differential-wise, between the other terms. And we had a pretty lengthy conversation about this in council. We visited it a couple of different times. Really, this is something that there are times when teachers like this, students like this, because it can feel like there's a dead time frame when you come back from winter break. of 2 weeks before you transition to the next term. I think it all depends on how we look at the end of a term, because if we shorten the end of the term to allow everything to get in, then we've made this second term even shorter if we end it before the winter break. If we leave it and end it after the winter break, it allows for that time frame for kids to turn things in and get caught up and that type of a thing. So there's plus and minuses to it both ways.
I'll say I've heard from my own kids who have semester classes and even teachers who teach semester classes that when the semesters aren't balanced, that makes it really difficult for them to teach their curriculum in that shorter semester. So I think that's another consideration
Absolutely.
as well.
Yeah, I would agree.
I've been concerned. I have 2 kids in secondary schools right now, one in middle, one in high school, and some of their teachers wanted work due last week. They're teaching for next semester already, or they're like, if you're done, do whatever you want this week, if you're all caught up. And I think that needs to be a discussion that we have, that how are we utilizing our time? Do we need to change when grades are due? I think some of the teachers I've heard from feel a lot of pressure to have them do at the timing that we've asked of them this year. Even a few more hours would have given them some more time to take care of things, and so I think that needs to be a conversation that we have of how can we better maximize instruction time.
Absolutely. And those were the conversations we were having with council. Because again, with the gives and takes, there's also sides to this where we then need to be very explicit about what do we mean by the end of the term, the timing of turning in grades, those kinds of things. Even the understanding, having everybody have a general understanding of if a student ends a term with an incomplete grade, what's the timing of them to be able to finish out the grade and not have it be an incomplete before it's posted as an F or whatever it might be. So there's a lot of things that we could do to help with that. I know Keith feels pretty strongly about some of this as we've had the conversations about ending before the second term, just because of what we're discussing. It puts a real pressure on everybody trying to finish out things before the winter break.
Well, and in this case, there were several teachers throughout the district who said, well, if I'm going to have the grades in by the 16th, then you've got to get your projects into me by the 9th.
Okay.
So that shortened the first semester, the first semester even more. Than,
And then
I didn't like the option a few years ago when we went with this imbalanced semesters, and I still don't. For this reason, if we don't control it, it will get way out of whack. That's an education term.
But also, and you touched on this a little bit too, Jennifer, but then from the 9th to the 16th, nothing happens in the classroom. That's, you know, I shouldn't say that. That's a pretty blanket statement, but in plenty of classrooms, I see it with my kids too. There's no real instruction in that time because teachers are busy helping kids catch up or whatever, and I mean, it happens at the end of the school year too. My son was told to go home one day when he was 100% supposed to be at school. I made him go, and he's like, they just are going to tell me to go home, and he was told to go home, you know, and it's totally an instructional thing. So that's almost sometimes even like a cultural battle we may have to fight.
Yeah.
But I dislike that so much.
How do we support our students who do need help catching up without
abandoning the ones that
Well, the harder discussion is that I have to sign a form every year that says that we're in instruction for 177 days.
Right.
It's hard to argue that when we're not.
Right.
Yeah, and we had a lot of emphasis on this. You know, Keith, the 1 year, our slogan was "Time is precious," and we talked a lot about the end of the school year, about not turning in books, those kinds of things before the end of that fourth term. So I think there is a lot of work still to do with this as far as culturally. The calendar, I think it's also a good reason why we've titled it tentative, because we can always go back and adjust if needed for reasons to make sure the education is the ninth priority.
All right, any further questions about the calendar? All right, we'll be voting on that again tonight as well.
Thank you.
All right, land trust training, we're going to turn it over to Alex Judd.
Good evening, school board. Thank you for the opportunity to train. You're going to bring this up for me, right? Okay. I'm glad we have our new board members here. We're excited because this directly impacts you. You'll get to do this. And Nate and McKay, you're done. Okay.
I just faked it anyway, so.
All the admissions, so we had
Right? Just signing stuff.
Just kinda, there you go. There you go. So our land trusts provide us with some great resources that will come to each of our schools directly, and they are also the schools work directly with their community councils to ensure that this money gets shared or used in such a way that it supports the academic progress with their students. So go ahead, Bonnie, click on that. Oh, sorry. Good. Just our kids, and this is what the trust lands money is for. This is one thing I'll say that the state has done really well with. This money directly impacts kids, directly goes to the schools, and is really, really done well. So Bonnie, go to the next slide for me, please. So this program, again, it's ongoing and generates money on a regular basis. They lease out these lands for the federal government, or the state lands that we have, leases it out to people to use. That money is generated, they've reinvested it. It's continuing to bring in more and more money. When I started this in education 2001, I was at Mapleton Elementary School. I think they were getting like $3,000 for the whole school. You'll see here in a minute, each of our schools are getting significant amounts of money now that they use to support their schools and doing things that they need help academically. So the piece there, just go back one right here, it says, in every school, these counselors review the school-wide assessment data and prepare and plan to address the school's most critical academic need or needs. So this is the piece you guys got to remember. This is intended to really address their academic need. Go to the next one. So here's where currently in Provo School District, we will be receiving almost $2 million through trust lands. And this is our distribution right now for each of our schools. You can go back into this later with your the slides and stuff and see this and pull out specifics. Yeah.
I have a good question on this. Is it distributed based on the amount of students at every school, or what?
Per
because
pupil.
I see them changing, and sometimes they're higher, sometimes they're lower, et cetera.
Absolutely,
so
that's what it is.
just the amount of students.
Per pupil amount. But you can see this is FY19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Some of those schools haven't changed a lot in enrollment, but you can see the distribution has changed a little bit. So this was 22 where some of the school enrollment really dropped. Like this was the year, 21 was when the enrollment dropped, but this is the year that we got the funding for it, so that's the impact that we have.
So it's a year like behind. They
Correct.
use last year's number to fund.
They use the October 1st count.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So
Okay.
our numbers for this year will fund the next year. Does that make sense? So that's kind of where it's at. It's really cool to see the amount of money we're getting. I mean, you look at Tippecanoe High School, they're getting $341,000 to be able to support their school, which is wonderful. Okay?
Yeah, sorry, one more question. It's a
Yeah.
massively different amount with Provo High, between them and Provo High. Is that really, like there's a difference of 500 students. Is that really the amount for 500 students? Wow, that's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Because that's about an elementary school right there,
I
right?
guess, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
that's exciting.
Go ahead, Bonnie. So the beauty of the trust lines is that it is flexible and it allows the school to make some unique decisions and be able to fill some spaces that otherwise wouldn't naturally be filled. So you can focus on any core standard, addresses behavior, it can address some behavior needs, recognize that it's not unlimited behavior, it's up to $7,000. And then you've got some really talking about safety and other things that they want you to work on. So the accountability piece is that we're really tying it back to the academic need, the school board, and the community council. So those are the three pieces that are really the accountability piece. It bypasses, for the most part, the district and getting the money out there. Okay, go to the next one, Bonnie. So these are the main areas that we're going to be that it focuses on. Go ahead, Bonnie. School board rubric. So this is where, this is, as a school board, you're expected to review these plans and sign off that these things are happening. Okay? So you're looking, do they have their academic need? Does it identify what area they're going to focus on, and that there's a plan or goal that goes with it, right? The way to measure it, then you're also looking at a way to spend it, and that the money is being spent accurately, and then you sign off on that plan at the end, making sure that it's there. The one piece of the trust lands community is big on, spend the money this year for this year's kids. Don't carry it over. A few years ago, we really had to go up to the state and have some crucial conversations because we were carrying over too much, but for the most part, we've got that back under control. Look pretty good. Okay, go bunny. Data-driven, guided by the principal, but it's really led by the community council. So the community councils aren't going to come in and be like, we really know what this school needs. A lot of times the principal's helping to guide the conversation and showing the data of where the greatest academic need is, and then they have the conversation with the community council, and there's a community council chair and vice chair, and the community council chair is the one that usually facilitates and runs the meeting with somebody from the school helping to take notes. Okay? Go to the next one. Greatest academic need, which we talked about. Also recognize that when they say that it's the greatest academic need, there might be language arts academic need that's greater, but there may be money that's already covering that. So they're going to say, let's go to our next greatest academic need and use the money to fund for that. Totally fine. They can do that. That make sense? You can do some behavioral goals. Up to $7,000 can be spent on PBIS incentives and other things to help bring the school into control that way. And then clearly articulating what are the next steps and how are you going to measure it so that you can show kids are benefiting from this money. Okay, thanks, Bonnie. Action steps. Go ahead, Bonnie. Next one. Carryover is just the one thing that this is the one that really gets people worked up at the district office. Spend the money on the kids this year. Go ahead. Due dates. This is the one that's really tricky. But you don't have to manage this. This is where I have my secretary navigate this. As there are basically 2 or 3 plans going on all the time. So you're reviewing last year's plan and giving that feedback and saying, how did we do? While at the same time right now they're starting to gear up to write the next year's plan while implementing the current year's plan. Does that make sense? So that's the dates really become complicated. But Tina, my assistant, sends the emails and he keeps people on target to get those things done. Okay. One piece with the elementary side of things, you will hear them talk about this. They have to review the safe walking routes for schools. The secondary folks do have some concerns with safety there, but it's not that they create a safe routes to school plan. So this is one that's been big, and Tina just gave me a heads up about our current, and Melanie did as well, about our current city engineer leaving, which kind of puts us in a precarious spot. Yeah, so we're having to reestablish some things. We got some good things going this last year, but it's changing a little bit. So go ahead, Bonnie, to the next one. So the community council reviews the plans and makes sure that the kids walk to school, and it's the school community council that determines what should happen, right? But if in that safe walking route, they identify an area where they need a structural infrastructure change with the city. Like, for example, this crosswalk. If you are going to need to remove or add a crosswalk, that has to go through the city engineer, and that has to be approved by them. The other piece of this is this is Amelia, by the way. If you turn left right here, this would take you to the Amelia School. A couple of years ago, this was their proposal. They brought it to the city and said, this is a very unsafe intersection because everybody is trying to keep a straight line. The line used to go straight, and the cars would dive into the bike lane and created some safety hazard there for people in the bike lane, and it was just a congestion. So they made a proposal to the city through their school community council to add in the things that they did there, and the city saw that and approved it, and they changed the infrastructure. But here's where in your rubric you'll see this. In order to make some of these infrastructural changes, we have to know early enough that we can get them into their budgets. So by the November 30th, the community council should have had a chance to review, meet with their community council, make proposals, and get that to Tina or myself so that we can meet with the city engineer, which I'm doing on Thursday, to go through all of those proposed changes. And that doesn't mean that they're always going to happen. It just means that here's what they're recommending. The city reviews it, looks at the laws and the bylaws, and says, this we can do, this we can't. That makes sense? Okay, go ahead, Bonnie. These are just your board responsibilities. Go to the next one. Go to the next one. This is a rubric, and it's basically outlining what your expectations are going to be. And I'll give this to you. What I need you to do is just to go through and see, do they have some clear goals? Are those goals tied to an academic reason? Do they have that clearly articulated? And are they finding a way to make sure that that is being spent properly. If it's being spent properly, great. There we go. Then also, are they making sure that the plan is being followed, that they have a way to execute the plan, get it done? And then are they spending money on safety and with behavior within the schools? And if they're also addressing the internet safety, because that's something as a district we felt like needs to be part of this community council. So that's the other thing with the digital citizenship. And then the last piece is they're not carrying over more than 10%. Now, Melanie at our last training in October asked that we add on that rubric to have the safe routes submitted before the 30th. And so that's added to the new rubric that we can give to the schools and just make sure that that happens. If they have them. If they don't have any that they need to submit, they don't have to do it. Just make sure that they recognize that 30th deadline so we have time to meet with the city and get the money set aside. Okay, go Bonnie.
And just to clarify for our new board members, we get this in April, right?
Yes.
The plan for next year, so we don't have to worry about that rubric for a few months, but we'll get their new plan and then we approve them at the April board meeting.
Perfect. And so they have to have their plans completed by March, so that in the April board meeting, I'm giving you the schools that you are responsible for, their plans, and then you'll review it, give feedback to the schools, they make their adjustments, and then they send that back to you and just say, hey, we've completed it, and then once that's done, we approve them in May and send them up to the state.
Can I give some open feedback as an
Sure.
unelected board member? Go back to the rubric. But still, nobody's gonna fire
Say
me
it.
for that. No one should feel guilty for meets the standard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the goal.
Thank you.
That's great. No one, I mean, if it's below, you need to,
Absolutely.
you want to talk to Alex sooner than the deadline. If there's anything that's below, you need to talk to him pretty quickly.
And can I just say, McKay, I appreciate you bringing that up, because in all honesty, we're not here to try to be critical of the schools. We're really just trying to say, is the expectation of the trust lands money being met? And if it is, done. We're not here to try to rewrite their plan for them.
The
That's
same
not our
the same with
Well said.
comments. If you leave, comments, if there's not comments, or if you want to put a comment, what's important is that they meet the standard. The state doesn't get mad. They're just trying to spend the money. It's like the signatures on the check. It's just a big signature. Yes, it meets. That's terrific. And digital citizenship is actually, it's more than our district. It's part of the state law.
But the way we've addressed it in
yeah.
this district
Yeah.
is through community council.
Yeah, but if it meets the standard, is the next part that I'll speak freely with, because this has been iterative over so many years. There are two things that have happened. One, Alex and the staff are really good at it, so there's a lot of copy and paste, because they can identify these are our academic needs, and this continues to be reading. At this school has been a problem because of where kids come in kindergarten, and it's likely to continue to be a problem. We don't necessarily have to hey, why aren't you more creative? If they're identifying the most academic need, and it's the same year after year, that's also fine. You don't have to be critical of that. And we've also hit a certain threshold with the amount of money that comes out, that pretty much what they're spending this on now is humans. Mm-hmm. And we don't have to go, oh, that hasn't worked in 3 years, why don't you do something else? Well, remember, education is just the most human thing, and you want a better education, actually, you just add more humans and you get better education. And so that's what that goes to, and so it's hard to be critical of their creativity when they're just arriving on, we're spending an FTE, we're adding an extra teacher to reduce a class size. No matter their academic need, they'll say it's reading, but we're adding a class size to reduce class size.
And you mean like an instructional aid or something? We can use
Yeah.
that money on that if it's
Enough,
that goal.
yeah.
Correct. And teachers.
And teachers.
Spend on teachers.
Yep.
Yeah, there's enough money in some of those to be able to cover
Yeah.
most of it.
Cover a position.
So
Yeah.
that's-
And that's
So
that's
from-
I
happening
think
a
to go
lot.
along with what you're talking about, though, it's not our job to criticize what their goals are or what they've done.
Mhm.
It's our job to make sure that they're meeting
The rubric, or that expectation, right.
Right.
The other piece that I would add to that, Rebecca, go ahead.
I just had a quick question, thinking ahead with the rubric and whatnot, and a couple things I was asking. When it asks us to check off the Safe Route to School and also the digital citizenship plan, typically those two things aren't ever included in the actual trust lands plan that we receive, so how am I gonna know about their things?
And this is one of those where, again, it's not gonna be in there. Nate's got us figured out here already. Time travel. We'll just time travel.
I just clicked it.
But no, some of it's not. It's kind of like that signature at the bottom. This is more of just them signing off that you got it and it's done. It's just more of them reassuring that it has been done. Does that make sense? Because to McKay's point, you're not there to criticize their plan per se. It's just to make sure that it meets those expectations of the rubric. And again, to your point, digital citizenship, have you done it? And it may be just a question you ask on there and just say, hey, hope you've met this or you've got this done. And it's just a reminder that this is part of what we do with our training in October with them. We give them that rubric, and that's on there for them to be able to say.
So it's partially
this is
for
what
their
they're-
benefit as well then,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
understood.
Also, one last thing to talk about with you guys going and visiting school community councils. You're welcome to join any community council out there. Just remember that you are a guest there and you're not a voting member. And what you say, they will listen to and sometimes think, oh, well, the board member said it. Just help them remember. They're the voting member. They're elected just like you to come in and run these community councils with that money in mind. Okay, go ahead, Bonnie, to the next one. We'll go back one more. Boop, boop, boom. Okay, one more. Sometimes their plan needs to be amended, and this is kind of how we've handled it in our district. Rebecca is the board member that is directly over trust lands. So in the event that there is a minor change that needs to be happen, I will review that with Rebecca. If we feel like it's not changing the goals, there's not a lot of money changing in that plan, we will just approve it and let you know. If we feel like the goal's changing or there's other major changes, we'll bring it back to the board and say, read this, review it, give us feedback if this is okay. Does that make sense? That way it's an efficiency thing, because if we get bogged down, then it takes a while because it still has to go up to the state, and they also have to approve that amendment. Okay? And just make sure that your board, go to the next slide, make sure that these are lined up correctly. I think that we've got them correct. Is this where you're supposed to be?
I had a question about this as well.
Yeah.
It's a quick question. Now that there's 2 of us on each secondary school, which is new, do we want both of us reviewing that same secondary plan? Do we need
Now,
to?
I would love for some direction on that from you guys. What would you like to do? Because I don't know that I need to, because I think that's a lot of work. I would just say one or the other, but you guys just need to let me know who's going to do it.
Okay, so maybe we could just work it out amongst ourselves, because I don't feel like we need 2 people on each plan.
Maybe
but I
the
would
month
say-
before, the meeting before you're gonna bring this to us, we can just have that as part of the board discussion of who's gonna take what.
How about Rebecca and I visit beforehand, we have a conversation, and then you guys talk about it at the board meeting and make sure everybody's good with it, and if you want to adjust after that, great. Done. Fair enough? Yeah. Tina.
Do you want corrections on this? I'm not on
Oh, shoot.
IHS.
You're not?
Well, I just for your information.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
Nate and I.
You have me
Nate's
as
on his way
independent.
out.
I am independent, but I think I was with you, right?
Yeah.
There we go. I'll work with.
I like being independent.
Are you?
But I don't
Are you sure
know,
you're
Lisa
independent?
might not want to be independent. She might be a little bit more team player.
I feel I might adjust with Gina.
Okay, so,
If you
so
can get
who's
that.
it? Nate, you're not an independent? Unindependent?
What is
Me and
independent?
Nate.
IHS is
Okay,
the
got
same
it.
as
Done.
it's supposed to be,
I just need to
right?
fix it. Got it.
Yeah.
It's done.
I interpret.
We'll figure it out. Got it. Anyway, any other questions?
Wait, you don't need 3 on
Okay.
All right,
That's
thank
all
you.
I have. Thank you.
Next, new website. I'm gonna turn the time over to Caleb Price.
Hey, we're excited to talk to you about some of the work we've been doing with the website. While Shauna's getting that set up, just as a reminder and background, about 6 years ago was when we last redesigned our website to the format that we have now. Just best practice, it says to look at it every 3 to 5 years. We're a little bit out of that, and so we started looking at our websites the end of last school year. We started with our employee website. We knew that there were some problems that our employees were having, and so we worked on redesigning that and introduced that over the summer at the beginning of this school year. As we were going through that process, we also learned a lot about our our public-facing website. Our current website, when it was redesigned 6 years ago, it did a lot of good things. There was a lot of positive that came from the community and the employees about that. But as time's gone on, and as we've looked at it a little bit more and heard feedback from community members and employees, we realized there's some areas that we can do a little bit better. So at probably 6-7 months ago, as part of looking at the employee website, we started looking at the public-facing website, and we've been working on this since then. So I'm going to turn time over to Shauna. She's going to talk a little bit about the process that we went through, some features of the new design, and she'll walk you through that new design, and then I'll be able to talk a little bit about next steps coming up.
So one of the major things we did when we started talking about redesigning the website is we looked at the analytics of our current website. We spent a lot of time just going through what was happening on the website and what people were actually using our website for. So this was our way to gauge what people were doing on our website and how they were using our website. So we basically looked at the website and took the pages that they were using the most, the clicks they were using the most, and everything. We made a list and said, okay, this is where they're visiting, this is what they're doing. And then we based our decisions on how to rebuild the website on what our people were doing, what they were doing, how they were using our website, and we based our redesign on that. We met, after we created this new look, we met with each of our departments and said, okay, this is what we're thinking. Now we need from you what you need in these areas. What do you need put in these areas? And what we were thinking is we wanted to stop thinking so much about departments and what we think as a school district, and start thinking more about what the community, how they think, and basically deconstruct departments and mentality and how we think as employees, and start thinking more about how a community member might think, because it's different for a community member, and we didn't want to be talking over their head or be making it difficult for them to navigate our website. So after we looked at the analytics, we deconstructed our departments. We met with all of our departments and had them look at it. We talked to other people in other school districts and asked them how they did their websites and what they were doing. And then we also listened to you guys and some of the frustrations you were having with accessing board docs and calendars. And we also did some research, a lot of research actually, on languages and language apps, because that's definitely a big point for ours. And so, the new website. We've created a new website, and these are some of the features we have. It's analogy. It's a Plinko board. Right now, our website, you put your piece in, your Plinko piece in, and you might hit the $10,000 Plinko, but it's a crapshoot. It might get there, but you don't know, and because it's so deep. So what we're thinking with this new website is you make it shallow enough that you can put that piece right over the $10,000 every time, and you're going to hit your mark. And so we've taken it and made it a really shallow website, so that you're always going to be able to hit your mark, and you're always going to be able to find where you're going. We've also made it more mobile friendly, so that I know right now you have that menu button that's so tiny when you're on your phone that you can never hit it, and it's so frustrating. Fix that. We've made multiple entry points so that you can find what you're looking for in several different ways. And so it doesn't matter how you think about how to enter it and where to find it, you're going to be able to find it. We've created a new board page that I think you're just going to love this. We've got a community essentials page, because we heard from all of our departments that they wanted to find something more community centric. We've enhanced employment page. This is a big deal because it's our most used page on our website. People are going to look for employment, and it's one of our biggest used page, so we've enhanced that. We have registration menu, and I'll show you that. We've maintained our AA rated ADA compliance, and that's a big deal. And that was not an easy thing to do, and have a language added to our website, so we're able to do that. We've integrated our Google calendars onto our website, which for functionality makes it really slick. We're continuing to translate our posts, and so our posts will be able to translate them into Spanish manually, but still have that manual Spanish translation, but still have the mechanical translation button on there. And then, and then we're going to be able to do a verified navigation button in Spanish.
So these last three language features I'll talk about a little bit more as we're planning for the future, kind of what goes into the work that we're doing on that.
Yeah, those were fun to try to figure out, by the way, but we got there. Okay, so here it is. Here's the website. This is the main page. This slider on the front is a little bit different than before. We've got this little background thing going on, and this is so that when you have any different screen size, it doesn't change. You still have the same size, and you don't have cut off heads when the screen size changes. Now when you get down to a phone size, notice the buttons. They don't disappear into a little menu thing, and you can still navigate. So that's a big difference there on that big side. Okay.
The other thing to point out with that picture is that we're able to do video there. So when we get ready to launch this, the plan is to, for the first while, have a kind of tutorial how to navigate the new site there. So when people click on it, they have that video right away to guide them through the new steps to find things. And then once we move on, we can, if we're working on creating an about the district video, that can be the first thing people are seeing, or any video that we decide we want there, we can put there.
Right off the bat, you'll notice that we have these three menus up top, and what we used to have up top is now down here. So you have your student essentials, employee essentials, and community essentials. And then you have these buttons down here. Board of Education, I'll show you right away because this is pretty cool. This is what your new school board page will look like. You'll have your calendar right here immediately. You'll be able to get right to, and your agenda is right here on the page.
That's awesome.
This right here is pulled from the latest post that we write. It also has links to the board study sessions right here on it.
So that's pulled from the website now. That's our last board post.
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow when we create our board report post, that will populate there as the most recent board. And then when we create the next board meeting agenda and post it, that'll be the next one. So whenever people come here, the most recent thing there will either be the agenda for the upcoming meeting or what happened at the past meeting.
Yeah, and that'll just automatically populate right here. We also put board meeting YouTube right here so that anyone can access it right here. So these buttons right here can be easily edited and updated anytime. This right here is a Google Calendar that Bonnie has access to, and so it can be updated, and I have access to, and so we can update it anytime we want or need to. So that's what that calendar is. Okay, back to the main page. Your employment vacancy.
One thing on the board, for
Yep,
Terry's
okay.
benefit, minutes. I didn't see a minutes button.
Okay, so the minutes.
For just the
Tomorrow,
past meeting, so
the minutes
all
are
it
gonna
will
be
say.
right here.
Okay, but that's just for the last meeting. But if they wanted to do
Board docs are
long-standing
still right here.
board docs, any thought of changing instead of board docs as sort of an internal term to sort of a community-friendly term that?
Agendas and minutes.
Like
Agendas and
board
minutes.
records and minutes, you know.
I will change the term to
Yeah.
say board records and minutes.
Yeah.
There you
That's
go.
an easy fix.
Well, I guess we could ask too, right now that's planning to link into board docs where people can get everything. If that's not the priority, if having the agenda here and then wanting the minutes easier to access, we could look at finding a change to that instead of linking into the kind of the internal board docs that Bonnie and the board uses. We can find a way to just have that be
It
the
doesn't.
minutes.
It goes to a public board
yeah.
docs.
Yeah.
But I think we
Board
still
docs
want them to
navigation
access
is
that because they can
terrible.
access the documents that are associated
Yep.
with agenda items.
It will also have, down at the bottom, any news posts related to board meetings. Right now it just has everything, but any news posts related to board will be here. So the older posts will also be populated. So the last board meeting agenda and then the last board meeting notes will be right under the most current one.
As news items.
As news items on
Understood.
your
Okay.
page.
So,
Yeah.
so Gail, I think your priorities on how you've done this is correct, but I would watch for board docs is terrible
Yeah.
navigation.
Yeah.
So
And that's, I guess
So
that was what my question
That's really good
was.
feedback. I will change that name.
yeah,
That's
so
an easy fix,
so
that name will
but
change.
watch for updates, and when if they make an improvement, then you can make
Yeah, because even once you get into board docs, the process to find the minutes is difficult. So I think that was more my question. If we wanted to find a better way to access those minutes without asking people to
To have
dig.
to navigate through.
Board docs is valuable to us. I think that I don't know if they'll want to change it, but just changing the term is
I will
probably
change the
sufficient.
term.
And then
Yeah.
I
I
should
wanted you
have
to
done
know
watch
that
it.
your priority of having the agenda
Mhm.
and the report is
Yeah.
actually of the latest is correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So we've also taken, because of the analytics and realizing that employment was such a crucial thing on our website, we've updated our employment vacancy. Jason's brilliant idea, actually. So each week we have a new post of what our most current listings are, and these take you directly to that post. And so every week, when we put up a new job listing, it will populate right here on this page. And so it will just, and then we have these buttons here that are important for HR. And so straight from the main page, you can navigate and see what the most current job listings are. We also have our district calendar, which is also really high up there on the analytics, directly from, and all these calendars are right here. All the school calendars right here, but we also have a district event calendar that we've created that you can also access right there from the main page. Whoops, that did not link back correctly. That linked to our old website. Okay, now we have our student essentials, employee essentials, and community essentials. Our employee essentials we've had live for a while now, but we've created student essentials and community essentials based off of the employee essentials website because we've had such positive feedback on that. So when you go to the student essentials website, it will look like this. We have register student, which is really important for the district and for parents. Then we have Canvas, Power School, school websites, bus routes, school meals, school boundaries, and text support and school calendars. Those are our most used buttons by our parents. And so that's what we put in the most easily accessible spots for them to find. Then we have these 3 spots right here that we can choose student essential highlights. So we can choose news based on what we want to show up on this page as the most important news feeds. And then underneath it, what we have is programs and registrations, district tools, applications, forms, and policies. And so instead of calling it departments, we're calling it programs and registrations. And then we're calling it district tools, and then we're applications, forms, and policies. So we're taking it and putting it more in language that's understandable for our parents. And we've just really gone through the entire website and worked with all our departments and identified all the different things that should go in these different areas, and just written them all out in lists and made links on them. Yeah.
Was it, so I've actually, maybe I shouldn't make this confession. I've stopped using the website because it was difficult for me. I am challenged in a lot of areas, but this is one of them.
Well,
but
hopefully this will bring you back.
no, this looks fantastic. But one of the things I would go for was to see my child's school website.
Uh-huh.
And so it
School
looks to me like it
website's
takes
right here.
two clicks. So it takes 2 clicks to get to a school web, or 3
Oh,
clicks?
Actually, you can go straight from here to schools and demographics and then to your school website.
Okay.
Or you can go
Student
from
essentials and then.
here to student essentials and then to school websites.
Okay.
Or from community essentials and then to school website. So there's like all sorts of different ways to get there now. So.
And then are those school, so another reason I stopped going there was because the school websites weren't updated, which I'm sure is up to the schools, so I'm wondering.
I'm gonna talk
That is
about
on
that.
the future.
Okay.
That's one of our
That
plans.
is
I was just wondering.
That is definitely on the
No,
plan.
we're in agreement
Yeah.
on that one.
Yeah, I went on and it's like, this is what we did for Easter and it's Christmas.
Mhm.
It's like, oh.
Right, okay. So everything else is encompassed in this programs registration, district tools, applications, forms, and policies. And then we did the same for the community essentials page. On the communities essentials page, we changed up these buttons on the top. We've got Board of Education, PCSD Foundation, School Safety and Security, Construction Projects, District Demographics, and then Employment Opportunity. District Demographics is one of those really important ones for the community. On the analytics, that one's actually really high. So having that one front and center, it's also on the front page as well. And then we changed up the bottom on this one to be departments, forms and policies, and then district information and reports, thinking more on the lines of community, somebody that's like paying taxes and would want to know where their tax dollars are going, that sort of thing. And so that's how we thought about this page. One of the feedback we got from the departments when we talked to them was that they really wanted a place to talk about the community partners, those that were working with them in their departments and helping them out, and those that were providing mentorships or internships, those that were providing aid for their families and volunteering and that sort of thing. So we wanted to create a page that talked about those sorts of things. And this page is still in the works, and we're still refining what to do on this page. But there's a page just talking about our community partners and really devoted to people that are helping with that. Any questions on the new look of the website? Any thoughts? Any feedback?
I
think
love it.
it's a great improvement.
I would love to know a timeline on when a launch ETA.
So we're looking to launch this the end of January. We're still working out a few kinks. The biggest kink has been adding languages, and that's like really, really important to us, making sure that we're able to translate the website. And so working out a few of those kinks, and then the back end stuff, making sure that we've got all that cleaned up and ready to go. And so we're looking towards the end of January.
And we have a couple more steps as far as involving, and I'll talk about it in the next slide of our presentation, involving community members and people that speak languages, to look at the website and go through that with us.
Yeah.
I also think it looks fantastic. Super excited. Love the colors, all of it. This might seem like a random one, but I'm wondering where I would find the Provo Way Award. So as a community member, if I wanted to nominate someone, right now when I tried to recommend it to someone, it's really hard to find. And then you do a search and 10,000 results come up. So is that on there? Could we put it on there in an easy way for our patrons?
That is a good point, and what I missed, and I will put that somewhere easy to find. Thank you.
Okay, and then
Yeah.
that made me just think of the search feature. I would hope that we could find a way to make it a little more selective than what it has been in the past. Because anything I've searched on the current website comes up with and it's hard to filter through what you want.
Has not been my favorite and a real struggle with the website, and I don't have an easy fix for that right now.
Other than making it easy to navigate, so you don't have to search.
Yes,
Yeah.
and so, yes, but thank you for the Pro Way, and anything else that comes to your mind like that you want to make sure it doesn't get lost in the mix, please feel free to reach out, because I want to make sure that I'm not missing anything
Okay.
like that. That was a big one there. Thank you for that. But yes, we have some other things that need to happen, especially for school websites that Caleb's going to go over now.
So the reason why the search function is so hard is because it's baked in to this template, right? And so to go beyond what search feature is there would require specialized, essentially, programming to say, all right, now that here's your general term, now specialized programming to add in additional filter features and things like that.
There are plugins you can buy. They're called indexing plugins, and they will even work with Google Analytics to pull, this is the site, this is the page I'm going to put that page that gets the most visits as
I've
the
learned so
top
much
one.
about plugin players.
So there's a plugin that does that?
Yeah, so just search indexing
I will.
plugins.
So we'll look into those indexing plugins. Is there any more? I think we got all the questions. Is there anything we missed as far as questions about the actual website? Okay. So here, these are our future plans. There's 3 slides. The content of the slides is similar. The websites and the time frame are really what changes. So I'm going to go through our plans for the provo.edu website, and then these will translate into the elementary school websites and the secondary school websites, following the same process, just on a different timeline. So for this provo.edu website, we're looking to launch it by the end of January, but have all of the features implemented by the end of the school year. And mostly that involves the language features. So you'll see the next steps for this. We're meeting with the Parent Community Advisory Committee and also the Latino Parent Committee right after the winter break to go through that, get their feedback. We especially want to meet with the Latino Parent Committee to go over our plans for the translation features and get their feedback. We've done that with employees that speak Spanish. They think our plan's a good idea, but we want to get it from the community perspective as well. Make sure there's just not something we're missing as we look to implement the translation features. The English audit, that is the main thing that makes the translation, is going to make the translation process take longer. Before we try to get our entire website translated accurately, we need to make sure that everything on our website is what we want it to be. We don't want to be paying to translate things that we don't need or that are incorrect. And we want to make sure that when we are translating, everything that we have in English is exactly how we want it. And so, coming out of the winter break, this is a lot of what Sean and I are going to be working on, is going through every single page of the current website, working with different departments that own those pages, and make sure that everything's accurate and up to date, and changing it if we need to. We also, as part of that, we need to look at the page ownership. We need to figure out, for the most part, we know this department, this director, this assistant superintendent is responsible for this page, but there's some of those areas where we need to figure out who's responsible for that page and work with them. I talked about the updating and removing information, and we also need to get a process or procedure put into place so that once this is all completed, it's easy for us to maintain it and keep it up to date. Especially if we're translating it into Spanish as accurately as possible, we need that process there so that whenever we make a change in English, that step to get it changed in Spanish is also part of that process. And we also need to make sure that between Shauna and Rob in Chad's department, who are the two that are doing most of the work on updating web pages, that they both know everything that's going on, so nothing confuses each other. And then we need to work on identifying a translation service or company that we want to go with that is going to do the accurate translation for us. Once we have everything translated accurately into Spanish between employees here at the district and that service if needed, we can verify everything's accurate, change whatever we need to, and then have that process in place to make sure new things are updated as we go. But we need to figure out who's going to do that initial translation.
So the idea is in January when we launch it, we'll have a translation button on it, but it'll be just that mechanical translation. It'll be what, not Google, but it'll just be whatever that translation is. We will have somebody in district go through and make sure that our navigation is correct. but any of the content on the website is just going to be a mechanical translation. It's not going to be correct. And until we go through this whole audit process, it's just going to be mechanical translation. And that's going to take a while.
So the hope is by the end of the school year to have all of this completed so that what people are seeing on the website in both English and Spanish is as accurate as it can possibly be. And we're also looking into, we're not going to be able to use every language that the district speaks and have it be able to verify the accuracy. As part of this process, we're going to look and see if we can get at least a mechanical translation of every other language that we have in our district. That's a little bit more difficult. We're not far enough along to be able to know how possible that is, but we're looking into that. And then,
Why don't you share the numbers, the percentages of the languages that you showed us in council?
So after English, Spanish is our most used language. As far as these are the numbers that are pulled from Power School into our call-out system of the parents that have selected a specific language as their preferred language. And so in that system, 7% of our parents are asking for communication in Spanish. And then we have a list of 18 to 20 additional languages that are all under 1%, for everything from Russian to Vietnamese, French. There's a whole list of those languages.
Swahili.
Yeah, Swahili. We've met with Brian Yazzie to talk about the language needs he's seen in the district. We know if we're able to, the second and third most needed translations are French and Japanese. So after Spanish. So we're going to look into those a little bit more deeply, but we have quite a few languages that if we can get a button there to at least give them some form of translation, it'll be better than making them navigate everything through English. And then once we're finished with the provo.edu website, you can go to the next one, Shauna. We're going to look at the elementary school websites through the end of next summer through the end of the next school year. And we're going to go through the same process on the elementary school websites as we're going to do with the main district website. We'll meet with schools, we'll go through that audit process, we'll identify who's responsible for what, get processes put in place to update the information, make sure that everything's accurate, and then put it through that Spanish translation process as well. And then the last slide is our secondary schools. We're looking at the second half of next school year. So we're hoping by the end of next school year we'll be able to be through this process completely with all of our websites. We're comfortable with this process right now, mostly because it's me and Shauna that are doing this, with a little bit of help from some people in Chad's department. But for the most part, it's going to be Shauna and I going to meet with people and auditing the websites. If it goes faster, we'll go faster. But with just the two of us, we're not comfortable saying it can go much faster than this.
The whole idea is to, in doing this, is to set up a procedure so that in the future things won't get outdated like you're experiencing now, so that we have a procedure in place that we have an audit set up, you know, that every few months the schools are notified, have you checked this page? Is this up to date? And so that we don't have this issue in the future. So it's not like, okay, it's just going to turn around and happen again. We're doing this so that we're doing this big audit right now and then creating the procedure so that this doesn't happen again. That makes sense?
And there will be certain pages that we're going to maybe put on a little bit different schedule or timelines, like the school directories. So those at the beginning of every school year, at some point we need to look at and make sure new teachers are updated, new employees are updated, and that might be something we look at a couple times throughout the year as turnover happens, where the content on the rest of the website might end up being a yearly audit type of thing. But as we see what pages there might be some areas where we look at it a little bit more frequently or differently than the entire website itself.
But once it's done, it doesn't matter the facelift or whatever happens to the website. There's a procedure in place that says, okay, it's been 6 months. Has this page been checked for content? Is this updated?
Okay, that's what we have. Any questions or feedback?
Are you using Final Site?
For our website?
Yeah.
For WordPress.
No, we are not using that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good job.
It looks great, yes, thank you.
All right, I'm gonna turn the time over to Rebecca to talk about the superintendent search update.
Okay. All right, I got a whole bunch of stuff. So Derek and I met with Richard and weekish ago. We also have been in contact a lot with Y2. Of course, we had our meeting with Y2 earlier about the survey, so I don't feel like I need to update anyone there. But here's just a few items I have listed. I'll go through my list, and then we do have one thing to actually discuss at the end. So the first is a reminder to please make sure you're not placing any parameters on the search when you're making any comments to anyone. So we do not want to discourage anyone from applying. We want as many applications as possible. We want a large, great applicant pool. And Richard has had experiences in the past where people have commented to him that they wanted to apply but heard that the board was looking for XYZ and chose not to apply. Please make sure you're not placing any kind of restrictions or making any comments that would discourage anyone from applying. We want to make sure everyone who's interested does so. As a quick update about searches around the state, there are 3 more searches that are on board now. We were aware of Washington and Morgan along with ours, but we're now also there's also a search in Cache, Salt Lake, and San Juan, all of which Richard is helping with, just like ours. So that made me a little nervous at first, but he wanted to reassure us that it's actually helpful for us, because when people start inquiring about San Juan, they can also say, oh, and you might be great for Provo too. And he says it actually helps each of the districts get the word out a little bit better, if that makes any sense. That's according to Richard. So hopefully that is a help to us. But we're up to 6 searches within the state now. So I have current.
And Washington will be determined.
Washington's
like,
pretty
in
almost
January,
done,
right?
so that's
Yeah.
kind of off the table. Here, everybody, if you want a hard copy of this, this is our latest draft of the brochure. I think I sent it out to the board today. I don't think I got it to you, Lisa and Meg, so I can forward you that email if you'd like a digital copy. We would love as many of our suggestions and feedback, as much feedback and as many suggestions as possible. Richard expects to go through multiple drafts, so don't feel like you can't, get, as much feedback as possible is great. I gave Jennifer an assignment on a piece of feedback she already gave in an earlier draft, and she sent an email about that earlier today, but it was just really shortly before this meeting. So if anybody has any suggestions on what Jennifer's already done research on as far as the brochure goes, I would love to hear your feedback on that specifically, or anything else you have to say about it. In our January board meeting, the first board meeting in January, Richard will be attending that board meeting, and will be helping us there finalize the process and the timeline for the rest of the search. So be prepared. You guys, I think, also have access to that kind of rubric type thing I made, or I don't know, it's not a rubric, a table, whatever, anyways. So come with your suggestions or thoughts on that, and we'll do that at the January meeting.
Are you sending that out to us as well?
I will. Thank you for reminding me. I keep forgetting to do that. I just click on board and forget that you guys have to do that. So you two
I just
need.
forwarded you the email.
Okay, great. And whatever it was that you gave her feedback on and we're looking into, if you would tell us a little bit about that too, just so we know, that would be awesome.
Okay, so I just forwarded you that email, so
Okay,
then
great.
if you have
Yeah, we
follow-up
just
questions.
saw that today.
We just barely got it before.
Okay,
So you
thank
guys
you.
need the brochure draft, and you also need the table for the process, for the search process. Okay, I'm just writing down a little note of that so I don't forget. Okay, now here's where we need to have a quick, short, probably long conversation. Try and keep it as succinct as possible. And let me give you some quick background on this, and then we'll open it up to discussion. As you know, we have Y2 doing our scientific survey for the community. They'll be doing a random sampling, and they'll get us some scientific data that will help assist us in our choice on the new superintendent. However, when talking with some of you individually in regards to where we wanted to go with that several of you mentioned that you also still may want to hold some public meetings where people can come and talk about what they're looking for in a superintendent. And so what we need to discuss is those possible meetings. Let me just talk about that real quickly. What we're going to do in our conversation is we're going to do an analysis on those meetings and decide what we expect to get out of them, what we want from them, and is it worth the risk. That's what we need to discuss. The reason we need to discuss that is because in the very recent past, any type of meeting that's kind of held like this has typically turned into something contentious. And that's not what I feel like we want out of this meeting. And so it would have to be very, very carefully crafted and run a very specific way in order to get out of it what we want without it becoming contentious in any sort of way. The reason I caution everyone about that is simply because Richard has done this with lots of boards and with lots of districts, and every time he does it, it seems to turn out that way. And so he's just slightly nervous about doing that. We've made it clear that we're interested in having the public involved in this process, and we want that feedback, and where our scientific survey will be a random sampling, that doesn't necessarily include every last member of the community, and some people may still want to say something. So we have kind of this battle here we have to decide what we want to do with. He did give a suggestion on how that meeting could possibly look, and I'll give you kind of that outline of what he thinks may be a good idea. He thinks that it might be good to start with a video type presentation that highlights the good things that are happening in our district and the successes that we're having, so that people already understand where our strengths lie. And then after that, we would I lost my place on my notes here. Explain to the community that we're trying to build on these successes. We would then explain to them the process of the search, exactly how we're going about our superintendent search. And then at that point is where we need to decide what we want to do next. We could, at that point, put a QR code up on a screen and have it be a link to a survey that we do as a school district rather than the scientific one. That could be similar, could even have the same questions, but where the people who come and attend that meeting just, click on the QR code and then they take the survey right there, and that's their way of giving their feedback. That doesn't super allow them to actually voice any concerns or suggestions they may have, but it does help us kind of keep a really civil atmosphere in the meeting, because we don't take the risk of opening it up to open-ended comments, which is typically where it ends up being contentious. Or do we want to open it up to a question answer, or to divide into smaller groups? Like, that's where we kind of need to decide what we want to do. So the question is, do we want to still have the meetings? Do we know what we want and expect out of them? And we need to kind of do a risk analysis to make sure that we are ready to do that. And also, he can arrange to head up the meetings, and he has like a little task force he takes with him sometimes that is like retired superintendents from within the state, and a bunch of people and so it doesn't have to be us, because sometimes that contention point is us, right, when we're there, or we incite the contention people because they like to dislike what we do. But anyway, so there's ways to do it. Now, what do you think?
So many.
I don't think we need to have them.
You don't think we need to?
No.
And do keep in mind, and I don't want to, I'm not trying to keep the community out of this, but the final decision is according to state law, a board decision. And of course, we want the community to have ownership in the decision as well, but it will come down to the 7 of us making that final decision. So this is the tricky part.
So if I can add, having gone through this a few times, the community will definitely feel like they're part of it when you are interviewing the candidates in public, and when you are maybe holding a forum of some kind with let's say the final 2 or 3 candidates. So there will be some substantial involvement at some point. I agree with Terry. I don't have a vote in this, but I would, if you're spending the money on Y2, that's where I think you want to defer to.
And if we're gonna have a public interview, why don't we just do like a QR code and people can say, you have an open question, what do you like about each candidate?
The public interview thing is another point.
That's another thing that Richard is gonna dissuade you from.
Yes, and I originally thought, I mean, we interviewed Derek in public, I thought it was fine. You did mention that it did make you nervous. Richard's suggestion and guidance there is that we do not do interviews in public because it will discourage people from applying.
Because the candidates may not want their current employers to know that they're interviewing. So I think it would have to depend who become those final candidates and would that work or not. We're not going to know until that point.
Right.
So the only reason for the discussion is there is a desire for us to posture that we are listening to that we are making a new connection to the community.
You're saying it all out now.
Yeah, but there's more than posture. It's we're resetting the district. That's why I thought a little of it wasn't just if it wasn't just on the superintendent. What direction should the school be going? Mm-hmm. And I agree with Terry that and the danger of the community, but actually where that comes from is where does our faculty get to say?
So one of the meetings would be a faculty-based meeting, like we had talked about.
Yeah. So if there are faculty-based meetings that they principal is free to, invite. Oh, but this is my PTA president. Can they come in and listen in to this? But if I agree with the auditorium and that setting is difficult to maintain that meeting, but to hear people, they have to be able to say, and a survey people just don't trust a survey. They don't trust voting at the moment. So why do they trust a survey that we're even going to look at it or read it? We're trying to communicate that we want to be part of the community. So how do we do that? And I agree that the big meeting in the auditorium has not worked. But how do we show that we want to be part of the community?
Yeah, so I would like to have the community meetings. I think it's important. I do want to hear what the community has to say, and I want people who maybe weren't part of that scientific survey to have an opportunity to weigh in if they want to do so. I just had a thought as you were explaining possible processes. I participated in the State Board of Education's call to have people come in and share insights about they're going to update graduation requirements and things. And they, kind of laid the groundwork like you were talking about, and then they had us go into groups, and they gave us a tool like a Padlet or something where everybody as a group could kind of type in as they brainstorm and come up with ideas with some focused questions. Here are the answers. So it becomes anonymous. So like faculty who wants to give feedback, we're not going to know which faculty it was or things like that. And then we have a list, and if we choose to be a part of it, we can be walking around and overhearing what they're talking about. And I understand people's hesitation about the contention, but I feel like we're doing this out of goodwill and like we want to connect, and we're not asking them for more tax money at this meeting, which is some of the problem before, right? And so I think, especially if we set it up with some parameters of like, this is why we're here, this is the specific kinds of things to help us move forward with this decision, constructive things, I think we could get some really good information from that, and I think it would be okay.
Well, I was just going to say, I've seen that format work with some really sticky, hard, messy contexts. When I lived in Boston, we had a facilitated meeting like this, and they just laid it out in the front. I like the idea of presenting sort of, here are some of our successes, and communicating in that direction and saying, we want to build on this, and we want to improve and strengthen the areas where you see the needs for them, and and kind of tell our story. I feel like we need to tell our best story as often as we can, and that would be a great chance to. But then what they did there, and what I think I like is this idea of like breaking them into some smaller groups, and each group has a facilitator, and the conversations can happen, and those ideas can be heard and consolidated. And I think that's actually really useful information to hear from people that care, because people will self-select in. I think it'd be nice to make sure school, maybe principals are told, like, be sure to personally invite some representative families so that more people really get a personal invitation to come to represent different voices and different groups of people in that setting. Because, you know, if you personally invite 9, you might get 4, but then at least you don't just get one small subset of group of people, of voices. You know, you might get more diverse voices in that room. And I think you could really, we could gain some good insight from the community in that way. And I think doing it once with teachers and once in English and maybe once in Spanish, I know that's a lot of work, but I feel like that would also inform board goals and a lot of things in the future, because that's a nice way to get some input. And I do feel like once you go into a smaller group session, it becomes less of a who's the loudest and most upset, and they're worried they won't be heard. And you know, if you're in a big group and you feel strongly, you're really gonna, I think that heightens your emotions a little. Whereas if you're in a smaller room and you realize you're gonna get to hear others and you're gonna get to speak, that helps everyone feel safer to communicate in a gentler way, maybe. I don't know. But I'm new and I might be wrong.
None of us have done this before.
Yeah.
We've never, none of us have hired a superintendent.
Going along with her smaller groups, I know you said that Richard would have a few people he could bring. I mean, we just don't know how many people are going to come to facilitate these smaller groups.
It would come down. It would not be enough to facilitate breaking. So if I think the compromise position is probably, you're probably going to have 3, you know, large groups, 1 in Spanish, 2 otherwise, that is mostly, you know, this presentation, and then we want this other thing. But I think that if you wanted to feel like, you know, you were listened to, if your faculty felt like they were listened to, if you came up with, you know, this is what we want to ask, that you could have either community members, the PTA, I think even board members could go, and it would be right after school. We're here for 40 minutes. You get to say, if it's a board member, we don't get to hire and fire you. We'll I mean, especially if it was a QR code and they could feel like it wasn't a piece of paper that you were going to analyze, you know, handwriting, and say, can you fill this out? Is there anyone who wants to say anything? Really, this is a safe space. This is what we want to do with the district. So that people at least have the opportunity to say, and those were, but they're 40 minutes after school in the afternoon.
On Friday. For the teachers after
for
school or for everybody?
Yeah.
Because we had already talked about doing it during the, like a Friday PLC time.
Yeah.
However you do it, I don't think we can hire our best candidate without being informed right now by our teachers and our faculty and our staff, and without being informed right now by our parents. Because just over the last 2 months, parents are sharing, their anecdotal experiences with their students, and it's really eye-opening for me because I have my own experiences, but they have often been really different than the experiences I'm hearing. So I don't know that we, as 7 people, would make our best decision without this.
You haven't had a chance. Do you want to say anything, Romelian?
I lean toward, well, I'm a therapist. I feel like we're headed into, we're going to small group therapy. Like, if I wasn't on the board, I would want to make my opinion known, but I would not want to be. It's like in Sunday school. If they tell me get in a small group, I'm like, I gotta go to the bathroom and come back when you're done. So I don't. If we say we're gonna have small groups, I think you're gonna X out a big group of parents. Like, I'm gonna have to talk in a small group.
But
I don't think so.
the whole point was to come and share your feedback.
Or to
so
just,
they're gonna
or to listen, and then maybe be able to share your feedback in an online or like in a written format, rather than having to get in a small group and have to talk And I'm pretty outspoken.
I hate
but
small
don't-
groups too.
I'm like, you tell me
you're
there's a
saying
small
you
group,
would
I'd be like,
rather-
I would be out the door, like,
Oh,
okay, I
that's
got what I
interesting.
needed, I'm
Okay.
gonna leave.
Yeah.
You'd
And
rather
so-
have the QR code to just fill it out while you're there.
Yes, but, I mean, to each their own, maybe you could have the QR code, and if they wanna do a small group, they can, but
Yeah, people can leave.
my guess is you won't have a
Would
ton
you
of people
feel
to
the
say.
pressure you had to say something if the group were like 8 or 10 people, like not a 4-person
It
group?
doesn't matter how small. the group
Are you
is.
likely to speak up in the big group, whereas in a small group you wouldn't? Like, if you came with a question or a concern, and you wanna share it.
Me specifically,
yeah,
I
you
would speak in
specifically.
either one. I wouldn't want to speak in either one, but I would. And I'm
Yeah,
not
if you
afraid, I'm
came
not
'cause you care.
uncomfortable, I just don't wanna do it. Like,
Okay.
I don't wanna be put in a situation where I'm gonna be put in a small group and have to share my feelings, cause that's really what this is feeling like. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, I'm not gonna vote against it, but, and I'm a therapist, like, I just.
Okay,
If we
fair
had
enough.
this online feedback though, and anybody who wanted to could get on, like you could have a group representative represent the group, but if you didn't feel comfortable sharing yours and you just wanted to get on and do that,
And
would
then
that
leave?
help?
Yeah, I guess, but as soon as you say small groups, you're gonna X out
But
of.
what if
But
it's just to hear?
If it's just, if it's
It's
school,
just to
if it's
hear.
school by
Yeah.
school, and the bigger the room, the greater the impression that a decision has been made. Because you've stood up in front of 300 people and you've put up a presentation about, oh, this is what we like, so we're gonna keep going. If the bigger the room and the longer you take to deliver your message, you're saying, you're already pushing, the implication is the decision's been made. If it's really listening, this is the time, these are the questions, do you have anything? If somebody doesn't want to say anything, that's great. They have the opportunity. It's just having that opportunity. And people can go to those big meetings and still not feel like they have the opportunity. And people can see the small meeting and decide not to go, or go to the small meeting and decide to step out and not even fill out the thing, but at least they felt like they had the opportunity. But I can be in a big meeting and feel like I did not have the opportunity at all.
Well, and I think that's, my bottom line is, we can do the small groups, that's fine, as long as I'm not. It will turn into group therapy and there will be tears if I.
I don't
But-
think any board member should be leading it.
Okay.
I don't agree. I think we need to be as far away from this process as possible, as far as like getting information, because I think we sway a room. a little
Right.
bit.
So I think my bottom line is, I would like an opportunity for people who don't get selected for the
Scientific survey.
special survey, scientific survey, to have an opportunity to be able to give their feedback. As far as what that looks like, I can be flexible. I'm not going to say no to the small groups because that might be somebody else's jam. But I think as long as we have something where they can do that.
So we could also, if we don't want any meetings, just also keep in mind that we could put a survey up on our website and send it out to everyone and just have everyone do our survey across the whole entire city. No in-person meetings, but there's a survey for everyone.
And then, so I'm fine with that. Then the question becomes, do we then water down, like?
The problem with that is it's not scientific. and
No,
so
no,
you
no,
risk-
I don't have a problem not being scientific. We have a scientific survey, but
Right.
which are we looking at? Are we gonna look at the scientific, or are we gonna look at the non-scientific?
Well, we would look at both. I'd be interested, honestly, to see how they match up.
So,
really.
well, then we gotta weight it, right?
I think a
Well,
survey
yeah.
may not catch things that